Welcome to the Drum Digital Transformation Festival. My name is Sonoo Singh, and with me I have Mary Portas, the retail guru and the founder and chief creative officer at Portas Agency. Welcome, Mary. How are you?
I'm good. The sun's shining. God, that's been a saviour for us, hasn't it?
It
That
has.
sun, the weather.
It has.
So I'm getting there. I sound like some ad for a transport company, don't I?
So we're going to be talking about the kindness economy and talking about why the time for kindness economy is now. And you really have been talking about this new kind of consumerism for a while now. But obviously what COVID-19 has forced us into is new behaviors, new methods of consumption. So tell us a bit more about what kindness economy is and why do you think now is the right time?
Well, look, I talked about this. I did a TED talk about this. And the reason I think this is the right time, there's been lots of things that have subculturally been happening over the years that we've called green issues, the sustainable stuff. It just doesn't kind of affect business, does it? And so many businesses have slightly just done a nod to it, and said, oh, this is organic or locally sourced. And we end up realizing it's probably about 0.1% of their whole collections and so forth, particularly in the fashion industry. Food industry was quite far ahead. But all those subcultures of, the doubling down on plastic and waste and the global climate marches and the fight against fast fashion and the factories, all of those things that we saw as, slightly sort of right on people have become actually going into mainstream culture. And with it, it's brought a much greater sort of and more understanding consumer, to the extent that the word consumer itself feels slightly dated. When you talk about consuming, it means you sort of judge me on what I buy or what I eat. And actually, what's happened is that we're going into an era where we're thinking much more about what we do and why our choices are. And I noticed working with many, many brands globally that what was happening is that the value systems that businesses had were becoming more and more important. And you started to realize that this was creating a new kind of economy, an economy that's not based so much on the old tenets of capitalism, that more is more, more is better, because actually we realized that more is not better. We realized that more is affecting the way we live. And now it's moving into much more the mainstream. Now, that's not to say that every brand's going to be like this, but it was very interesting when you hear the likes of the ex-governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, talking about, instead of a market economy, this is going to be a market based on people's values and what they believe in rather than what the market believes in. So you start to go, blimey, this really is starting to go mainstream. And the other thing is, we're seeing brands that are winning are the ones that are actually behaving in a more decent way. And what's happened with COVID is this has smacked it right into the mainstream. And we're seeing research coming out where I think it is like only 9% of people want to go back to the way we were before. Business as usual. Well, actually, business as usual didn't work for a lot of people. And what people are saying now, and well into the 70s and 80% are saying, we will buy from brands we share our values. And those values have been jettisoned much quicker because of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, this thing has smashed everything that we knew, and what it has obviously done is upended businesses like never before. I'm quite curious that for every LVMH or a Burberry, which has been producing gowns for the NHS, for instance, you have Richard Branson or indeed Victoria Beckham and their businesses and the way they're not.
And Philip Green.
Yes, exactly. And how they are not part of this conversation. I just wonder, and you talked about fast fashion as well, and Primark is a great example of actually earning no money at all in the last few months. I mean, are we all done with fast fashion? And do you think that there will be more and more businesses that will be forced not to be a Richard Branson or a Philip Green?
Yeah, I think those sorts of, there's a couple of answers to that. I think we're not done with fast fashion. I think it's, value fashion will be with us for a long while and continue to. I think it's this is a price point that's gone into the whole system. And I don't think we're suddenly going to go, oh no. and we're all going to buy much, much less and much fewer and edit our wardrobes and become Margaret Howell shoppers, nice as it sounds. It's going to be there. There are, you know, we know that generation, particularly on fast fashion, are, you know, young girls with little money, and the whole social way of it is, look at my new dress. That is not going yet. But where I think there is going to be the shift is in the middle market, and where we're seeing those businesses that didn't have a kind of fashionability and a kudos or a real clear brand equity with them, and that we're just selling more stuff, that we're going to see those just completely go from the marketplace. And I'm sorry, we've seen some already, you know, those sort of brands that just lost the edge, the Oases, the Warehouses, the Debenhams, the House of Frasers, that were very sophisticated systems. They were very good at getting stuff to the people. You know, it was operationally what I call the physics, great physics of a business, but no chemistry. And the thing is now that chemistry with these brands is going to become more and more important. And when I talk about chemistry, I talk about the feeling, the resonance, the cultural resonance of them. Now, that cultural resonance isn't always about being kind and you know, buying into stuff that shares all, you know, good for me, good for the world values. It's a resonance that's happening across people and how they're feeling. And some of the streetwear brands are absolutely brilliant at that. They're slightly, you know, anarchic in the way that they market themselves, but they have a point of view, and they're very, very linked to their community's values. So when I talk about values, I talk about a lot of it will be around good for the world values, because we've become more aware of that. But it's brands that are really much more pointy in bringing their business to the people rather than the people coming to them. So people buying into values rather than buying from businesses.
Indeed, almost.
But the answer is we will still see fast fashion, but they will be behaving better as well. They will, because we are now, the public know the ones. Because not everybody, look, we've all done it. We all think, oh God, I know Amazon, do we love them, but it's still bloody easy. Come on, we all do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sitting here saying we're just going to have, but those will be much more accountable, and there'll be brands that will be actually looking at their success rate, not through just what goes through the till, but how people feel about them and where the equity is in people's lives.
Yeah, and there has to be some kind of commercial resonance in all of that as well, because, you know,
of course, listen, you know, in order to, we want profitable businesses, you know, and that's why I say, and when I talk about the 4 Ps, I talk about people first. If you get your people right in your business and the people that you're connecting your brand to, planet and profit, but it's also product weaves between that. So that's how I always talk to my clients. I look at those tenets and say, how do you weave product? It's a very different way we're now doing that, particularly in the fashion industry.
So something I've noticed that you've been tweeting about quite recently is mediocrity in especially in retail, and you've mentioned a few of those brands. So when you're talking about business as usual, I mean, that has never been the case, because it was never the case. I mean, what exactly do you mean by that? And what do you think, you know, when we come out of it, in whatever state of normalcy that might be, what will that retail landscape look like?
I think it's going to be fewer brands digitally and in bricks and mortar physically. There'll be an edit. My dog's just come in. Hello. The door squeaks open and my little dog one. And there'll be fewer brands, but there'll be better brands. I did a quote in the FT that, you know, the Warren Buffett one, when the tide goes out, you can see who's been swimming naked. And I think the tide's gone out. And some, sadly, because of cash flow, we're going to lose some great brands, smaller brands that were really delivering something, and that's just awful. It is awful, and that makes me sad, because I think there's been great innovations. But I think we're going to see fewer, and we're going to see better, and it's going to be streamlined in what they do. They'll be looking at their offers in a much more streamlined way, and that means the amount of stuff that they sell, because so many of these businesses have been hit by factories, and they've hit the factories as well, and we're shaming the ones who are going out there and not paying the poor factories that were making them, pumping the stuff out for them. So I think it's going to be better retail that we'll see, and I think we will see innovation, because what's going to happen out of this will be a new way, even the way that brands are promoting seasons, drops, when they feel it's right to connect to their consumers. I think all the rear view mirrors of looking at last year's numbers and seeing how we go on that will go out the window. And I think there's going to be a complete new way that we're going to have to adopt to this. But I think getting back to high streets and bricks and mortar, you know, what we must never forget, and it's really true, is if you create, you know, social, and I talk about this often, if you create social capital where people want to be, economic capital follows. And we are neurobiologically wired as humans to connect, and we enjoy that. So there will be better retail, and we'll be doing it in a completely different way in the physical space, particularly the malls, which are, you know, in serious trouble.
You know, you talking about better retail reminds me of an argument I read recently about how there is this hero narrative of the retail workers, because not only are we clapping for the NHS workers as we should, but you know, a lot of us are now being asked to clap for the people at the front.
The sales teams on the tills and the front liners.
And I'm actually curious about something I read, and that was the argument was that this, you know, to buy into that narrative of hero, we're kind of losing track of the real story. And something you touched upon just now was that we all know where it concerns retail workers, they're underpaid. A lot of them probably are not looked after well. And in reality, what they are probably not heroes, but victims in some shape or form. So if we start this narrative, then perhaps things are not going to get better for them. Do you buy into that argument?
Well, I think we have started the narrative, and I think the narrative will continue. And I think listen, who knows? There's always going to be bastard businesses, right? So there always is, and there's always going to be decent businesses. That's the way of the world. But I think what's happened here is that there's a platform, and there's a new set of values that have come in because of this. And I think it's going to be harder for those people. Interesting. So I was thinking about this the other day. When you see all these brands, and most want to behave well, I'm doing, you know, we're making the gowns, we're doing the masks, and it is great. Look, listen, I don't want to knock that. Some of them, like I was talking to one of the fashion editors this morning who said, you know, we're doing this, a very famous fashion brand, very famous fashion house, and we're doing this, please tweet about it. And she went, that just sort of blew it out of my mind. They want me to write about it, which kind of like, but I was thinking about this. Brands like Tesco's are giving 10% to NHS workers, or I think that the staff as well. Great. Are they going to stop after this? You know, you're talking about, is this going to continue? We're going to get, are they going to say, no, that's all over, you know, back to being lowly paid, we don't care about you. This will be interesting to see the ones who continue it, which I think is part of your question. Who are going to be the brands that continue and say, actually, this really worked, and this felt good doing this, and it felt good for those team of people, because that feeling of, isn't that great to do that? It's going to be so much better for their bottom line than if they go back to the old ways. So I think, of course, caution, there's always going to be businesses that will abuse situations like that. But I think we're going to see a growth in better for those people, because you know what, for the first time, they've actually gone out there and we've realized how important they are.
So talking about doing business in the old way, what is your view? Let's talk about the advertising industry as such, because advertising industry, as you know, and I know you have strong views on this, has always been, especially network agencies, have been talking about disrupting themselves and trying something new and innovative. But now they're almost playing sort of catch up to a lot of independent shops like yours, for instance. And I just wonder whether you think there will be winners and losers, and what shape that might take. What's your view about the advertising industry and how this might reshape it?
Yeah, I think we're going into a time where this is about expertise within certain, sectors. I think people will be looking to partner with agencies or consultancies that are experts in areas that can really help them through. I think we're going to see a greater deal of that. They're more the generalists. It's a bit like the middle of the road stuff. I think that's going to shrink. Now, whether the big agencies start to create those within their businesses as departments, I think we're probably going to see a great deal more of that happening. So much of what will get businesses out of the state that they're in today is not so much what they say, but what they do. And I think agencies are going to have to come up with what we call in our businesses sort of, behaviours, actions and deeds that brands need to do, because that's what's been the litmus, and that's what's been the benchmark for this now. If people are assessing on what they do rather than what they say. And historically, advertising is about what you say. We're really going into a time of what you do. So I think they will have to shift into a space that actually understands what it is that people want from brands, and therefore what behaviours and actions they expect from them, because I think they're going to be much more powerful than just major campaigns.
So I have to talk about your book, Work Like a Woman, because obviously it was all about dismantling the hierarchical, the alpha culture, and obviously taking more sort of feminine qualities when it comes to leadership, especially. Do you think we need the next version of that book, especially now?
I don't know what the next version is. I think we're seeing more and more of it happen. It's really interesting. Of course, I'd like this, but someone sent around an email saying the countries that are doing the best are the ones that have got female leaders. Just want to put it out there. Sorry, boys. I think part of it's really interesting. I was listening to Brené Brown giving a talk the other day, who I love, and she talks about vulnerability, and you've got Elizabeth Day's great podcast on how to fail. And these were things that I think we've just found easier as women, and we do, we just have, but those are going to become these new tenets of business. And I think what we're going to see within businesses are, and when I did this book, 5 years ago, we rebranded our agency around those. Very interestingly, I've been called in to give talks at some of the biggest old institutions, and who are run by men who are also saying, do you know what, we want this, we want to embrace this. So I think that the core tenet of that book is humanity, decent humanity within business. And I think that is, as I said, it could have been called how to work not like a complete arsehole. How about that as a title? But I put woman in there because the values that were normally associated with women, that of caring and doing the HR roles, are now actually coming into the front of business. And look what we're seeing. Look what we're seeing. We're seeing businesses that are showing that side, and they're the ones that people are going, I like you, I salute you. So I think that is going to be all that stuff which goes into the kindness economy. Just behave well, think about what people want, really understand, don't second guess, really understand human behavior of people. I mean, one of the biggest things that we've done in our agency is brought on a little unit with social anthropologists. I want to know, I want to be connected to people and understand how people are living, because that's the only way we'll understand how to sell to them and connect our brands to them.
So the last
sometimes I get it wrong. That's being vulnerable.
Yes, indeed. The last question I have for you, Mary, obviously you're sitting in your beautiful home, as am I, and you've got kids, and of course you're working as a businesswoman, business owner, in fact. How hard it is for you to, when work is all pervasive at the moment, every nook and cranny, really, you're taking your laptop and therefore your work with you. But also, do you have any tips because a lot of people in the industry have been saying how difficult sometimes it's almost to get up from wherever you are and kind of almost be disassociated at some level with work. Are there any creative tips that you might have?
When I first started doing this, the Sunday Times interviewed me on it a week in, and I was just like, and literally I had to do the phone call interview on that, the tips. And I couldn't even speak, I was so tired and so stressed. And so I want to be honest, this is difficult. This is difficult. And I think the most important thing is this, and where I've got to, which I was talking to you before, an acceptance of how this is difficult, and actually being kinder to yourself and just going, it's okay. Because I've never worked so hard. I have never worked so hard. And not only that, all those lovely little subtleties where you used to be able to have pass someone in your office and say, oh, don't forget, or ping me that. Oh, did you see that piece I read? No, you have to do that like this. Oh, I've got to put my Slack on. Is it doing an interview? Are we doing our FaceTimes? And actually, I'm feeling exhausted. I've got a young son. I'm trying to home educate. You're trying to clean your house. You're trying to think big. You're trying to think, how do we get ourselves out of this? You're trying to be there for your clients. It's difficult. The only tip that I have is just be kinder to yourself. And I do this. I do take what we call headspace time. We put it in our business and we say, nobody contact each other then. Just go and smell the roses wherever they are, or even just look at a branch of a tree. Anything that just gets you outside is to regenerate and re-energize, because I do think there's a trauma that's gone into all our bodies, and there'll be a collective trauma. And I think the businesses that will be making some great business on the back of this will be the well-being ones that just go, because we need that. This is tough. I can't say it isn't. It's tough. And I do get pissed off. I do get pissed off when people say, hey, do you fancy a drink at whatever time? Oh, I've just been learning the piano or doing yoga. And I'm like, ah. So I don't connect. They're the ones that no. Because it just does my head in even more, because I got so hung up that I should be doing that. And I don't have a minute.
So it's not about trying to learn the piano lessons or a new language. Nothing about that. It's about being kind to yourself.
Kind to yourself, self-preservation.
Kind to yourself and self-preservation. So on that note, Mary, thank you again for your very honest and candid insights. And thank you, viewers. I hope you've been enjoying the Drum Digital Transformation Festival. Keep safe and keep sane, and goodbye.